And looking at the situation where we do not have a commission in place, all the things that you've listed, they depend on that commission being placed. Should we be worried about these processes or these processes not being completed by the next general election? For instance, if we look at our social media, and as you put it rightly, the interests of the youth in our electoral processes, look at the processes that are supposed to be ongoing, voter education, voter registration, none of that is taking place. And just the issue of IBC, the commission being in place, but also when it comes to allocation, um, are we very, is there a positive or should we be very positive about this commission conducting most of these processes, these very important processes by 2027, or the more we are delaying it, the more we are likely not to have many of the processes conducted or conducted effectively as they should?
Well, the fact that we don't have the laws in Kenya uh, direct that we have a commission in place for 5 years.
Yes.
We are not supposed to have a lacuna or a period where we don't have a commission.
That's true.
So the commission is supposed to be appointed immediately the last commission ends. We have a new commission in place. In fact, there are mechanisms in place to ensure that the transition process even starts being processed 3 months before the other commission retires. So those provisions are there, which basically means our constitution imagines a situation where there is a back-to-back commissions. Once this time is over, the other one picks up and goes on. Because like we said, there are quite a number of processes which are continuous in nature. So since the Kenyan people wanted a permanent commission, they did not want a part-time commission, then there are reasons for that. And the reasons are the activities that must be conducted by that commission throughout the entire 5-year cycle and throughout their tenure while they're in office. So yes, there'll be very many things that could be affected. Already I've talked about the fact that we do have people who are not being represented in very critical decision-making assemblies, national and county assemblies. That's already a very major problem. That's already people who are suffering from a disservice because we don't have a commission. The fact that we don't have a continuous voter education and voter registration process means that people are missing out. True. If you were to hold, for instance, those by-elections, when the commission does come in, they'll provide an opportunity for a very short window in which the registration of voters in those constituencies is going to happen. Yes. Those who maybe were in the country would have registered, and some of them have gone outside the country, and they may be coming back around the time the by-elections will be happening. They'll be disenfranchised. True. Because they'll not be able to participate. They would have benefited from a continuous program of registration. Information would have been flowing, and we are discussing this in a time where the question of disinformation is reaching some very crazy levels, especially with the AI. So where formal information would have been provided by IEBC, we don't have that. The readiness to the next election is going to be handicapped. The members of parliament may yet make a decision in terms of the boundary review, and from based on what we hear and what we see in terms of the proposals, chances are they're going to delay the boundary review. So we're still going to have a problem in terms of the proportionality of people who are represented by one member of parliament in the next election. That's already nearly like a sealed issue. We nearly know that given the timelines that are remaining, it may become very difficult to be able to conduct boundary review in that time. And therefore, we shall have skewed representation. That's a major implication. But there'll be the question of reforms. Will we have enough time to be able to adequately ensure that all the reforms that have been processed are implemented in time? Number one. And number two, will the commission itself, it has suffered before for lack of readiness to prepare an election. If that commission comes very late in the day, like it does look like it is going to, will it be ready considering these are all new members of that commission, considering some members of the secretariat, such as the current CEO of the commission, may even retire before the next election.
True.
So will they have enough preparatory environment, a conducive preparatory environment that allows them to be ready for that next election? So we may start suffering the same kind of issues that we have said we have had in the past, where the commission comes in place, they don't exactly know what is going to be done here, whether it's about procurement, whether it's about the new systems which are going to be in place, technology and all those things. And then they start receiving orders now from the politicians.
Yes, or even just understanding how the commission works. These are new people.
Exactly. So they have to go through an induction, they have to prepare themselves for all these things. So I feel as things stand, unless something changes, Kenyans are already shortchanged.
As Gen Z say, tutaanguka nayo.
Itabidi sasa watu waanguke
tutaanguka nayo until an election occurs.
Yeah, there'll be an election, of course, on August 2027. But the question is, how prepared as a country are we going to be? How many people will have been benefit from the voter registration processes? How many will have trust and belief that the new commission will be able to conduct it fairly? And because of all those issues, then how many people may not want to participate in that election? Yes. Apathy. What kind of apathy does this create by 2027? So I think it's a watch and wait game. But as things stand, like I said, Kenyans are already shortchanged. The most we can be able to do is to ensure we fast track some of the remaining processes, like, for instance, getting that commission into office as earliest as possible, and then trying to pick our pieces immediately after that.
Thank you for those points, Mule. And a question directed to the observers. In the current situation and in the current landscape, what should observers look out for? What should observers be alive to, even as we watch and wait? Because most of these processes, most of these initiatives depend on our leaders, and as we have seen, they'll try to take as much time as they can before either implementing or just doing what they are elected to do. So as observers, what should observers be alive to in this situation?
Given the context that I've just given in terms of the electoral environment, and the fact that we may not be prepared in good time for those particular elections, observers therefore may be required to make a very special monitoring program, a program that allows them to be able to look at the work which is being done currently, all the issues which are pertaining to the electoral or the holding of a conducive electoral process. What is happening in the political space, for instance, in terms of the discussions around the reconstitution of IEBC. That would be something that the observers want to observe very closely. What happens? What is the entire process? Because how that process develops and concludes will be very important in terms of how then the new commission, which picks up from there, is able to engage the environment moving forward. The process of reforms and the bills which are in Parliament, tracking them and ensuring and commenting and participating and having stakeholder engagements where they can be able to appraise the proposals which are being given right now, because they are being given at a time that we don't have an election commission leading the process. Ideally, IEBC should be leading the discussion around reforms. But because we don't have a constituted IEBC, especially in terms of the political office, therefore, actors outside must be much more vigilant by following the processes, by engaging actors, duty bearers such as the parliamentary committees, the other agencies like the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties and related bodies closely to watch and converse over the reforms and the recommendations which are being proposed. Again, track that particular process very closely. Because information is a major issue, it will be prudent for observers to be monitoring information that is being spewed out, which is being shared with the public on the political processes, on the developments along the electoral timelines, so that we can be able to gauge whether we have information that is credible, whether there's some level of integrity to the information that is being shared with Mwananchi. Otherwise, one of the things about apathy is that people get the wrong information. They imagine that the worst is going to happen. Then they're not going to participate in electoral processes. That leads to suppression of the vote. And we must therefore watch out there, go out there and find out is the information which is being shared out, whether it's through media, especially through social media. Is it information that informs the citizenry on what is going on, and does that allow them to be able to make the right decisions when it comes to those elections or the electoral processes which are oncoming, like the reform processes, the by-elections, and everything else, and that. So I think my take is that now more than at any other time, the watchers must really watch the situations very, very, very closely. Follow the political parties, follow the politicians, follow parliament and the decisions it is making, follow the agencies outside IEBC, which are also involved in those processes, those what we call the election management bodies, all of them. Follow them very closely in terms of how they prepare themselves, how they interact with some of the proposals, and then we could constantly inform the country where we are at. So we need to keep taking stock at intervals and speaking to the nation about those processes, the realities, and the other aspects that may affect our elections by 2027. And once IBC comes into play, now work very closely with the commission in terms of the obtaining issues that they'll find on the ground, and also very closely on the preparatory process towards the 2027, because I think since they'll be time barred, a lot of things will be pushed. Some of them may even end up being pushed on the carpet because of time. So I think that would be a critical issue that the observers will need to be pay close attention to.
Thank you so Mule for the insights. You're very knowledgeable in this area. And as we wind up, could you maybe just give us your last thoughts, considering that the global electoral climate or political climate is changing? We are very aware of the wars going on, of the American and the UK situation, and our own situation as a country. So as we wind up this podcast, what is your way forward for us as Kenya, considering all the other global aspects?
I think globally, first we must remember that the American election is just about a week from now.
Yes.
It's happening next week.
Yes.
American elections have a way of determining the cough that is going to be in the world.
True.
Which direction does the disease go?
Yes.
So depending on who wins that election, a lot of there'll be implications across the world. We also understand that, we are also aware of the global tensions which have been building over the last few years with the war in Ukraine, with the war in Gaza, with the tensions in Taiwan, and in other spaces. Sudan, there's been a conflict for the longest time in Africa, the coup situation in the West Africa. So there are global tensions, and there are feelings that the feeling that democracy is on decline is not understated. I think it's an understatement. I think there's a major problem with democracy across the globe. Moving forward for us as Kenyans, I think Kenyans there's an awakening that has been taking place in the country, especially for the younger generation. I think that is what I'll speak about moving forward. There does seem, for the first time in a long time, we have not seen this cadre of young, excited activists who are starting to get themselves into the space, the political space. And the political space is the electoral space. So I think there's a lot of excitement moving forward in terms of how this younger group of Africans, Kenyans and Africans, who are starting to endear themselves to electoral and political processes, how they will participate in these processes is an area that should be very interesting. And if based on the outlook at the moment where they have been involved, they look like they are very involved. If they join political parties, if they vie for candidature in the next elections, if they decide to participate en masse as voters in the coming elections, both in Kenya and the rest of the continent, then chances are that we may start redeeming the kind of leadership that we have at the moment on the continent and across the globe. And if that happens, my thinking is that that could give some kind of wind of change to the democratic experience and practice, and therefore maybe re-energize it much more, so that maybe in the next 10 years, 10 to 15 years, we'll be talking about a reawakening of the democratic experience and practice across the globe, starting with Kenya, starting with Africa, with the youth population, and then spreading all over to the other spaces. So I think there's a positive outlook out there, despite a very glim, a very negative picture that I mean, you can be able to make a deduction of based on the current world events that we see today. So I'm very positive about the future, about the engagement moving forward. But I hinge this on youth engagement, youth participation, and sustenance of that engagement by our younger people, younger population.
Thank you so much, Mule. Thank you for the insights. And we definitely will bring you back again, because this topic is too wide and we cannot talk about it or discuss it in a day. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our viewers and listeners. This has been the Darubini ya Uchaguzi podcast. And until next time, I've been your host, Pauline Ekesa, and see you again. Goodbye.
Thank you.